So I just finished an 8-paragraph essay for my English 4 class, which actually doesn't sound as hard as it does, just because my teacher gave us all the stuff we had to put on the essay, so it was really simple. I just bring this up because I mentioned it on my Facebook page. As for my mood, narrating puts me in a good mood, as all of you should know by now, so I decided to narrate this quick Indian battle that I had using this extremely fun team that I made based around Nasty Room Bohemian, which is a Nasty Plot and Trick Room Bohemian for those of you who don't know, along with Dragon Dance Fracture. Not the best team ever, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And looking at threats on my opponent's side of the field, that Butterfree and that Glaceon, if it specs, are going to be the two biggest problems, just because Butterfree with Compound Eyes and Quiver Dance is very, very scary, and this team really doesn't have anything too fast on it. So he's going to be leading off with the War Turtle, as I'm going to be leading off with my Golurk. Obviously, I don't want to take the Scald, so I decided to switch directly into my own War Turtle, which luckily for me, he does not end up burning me, but I can now go for the Toxic, as he ends up Toxicking me, which I guess having the burn wouldn't have been too bad, just because Toxic is going to be racking up, while burn would just be 12% every turn. So this turn, I'm going to switch into my Licky, hoping that he doesn't go for another Toxic. Then again, even if he does, I do have Heal Bell, but he actually switches into his own Leafeon. And here, if this Leafeon had been Substitute SD, a set that I completely forgot that Leafeon likes to carry, and he had set up a Substitute and Swords Dance and Baton Pass to Sock, I possibly would have got destroyed. Luckily though, that isn't the case, and knowing that this turn they switch into my Golurk is way too obvious, I actually didn't think he would go straight for the close combat, but more than likely go for the Ice Punch. So I thought this would give me a free switch into my Garbodor, but as he goes for the close combat, he gets a crit. Now that did about 60 to 70%, which automatically tells me that thing is choice banded, and that it's going to be hitting like a truck, especially if I lose my Golurk. So, just wanting to get off some damage on the obvious War Turtle switch, and I decided to go for the Gunk Shot, but he actually switches into the Butterfree. I guess maybe thinking I would want to take this opportunity to get up a layer of Spikes or a layer of Toxic Spikes, but no, I did just go straight for the offensive play, and I'm going to get really lucky, hit the Gunk Shot. Above that, I'm going to be able to get the 12% poison, which means Butterfree, one giant threat, is out of the way as he brings in his Golurk. I know that I am faster than the Golurk, and honestly, I have no free switching to this Golurk, so I guess Golurk is also somewhat of a threat, but it just completely escaped my mind at the team preview, so yeah, my bad. Anyways, I decided to go for the Gunk Shot just to be able to get off a bit of damage on the Golurk, which then again, Gunk Shot is resisted, but there was always a possibility that I could poison him. Although I miss, I really wasn't mad about that, just because I guess that makes up for the fact that I poisoned his Butterfree. So in the end, it really isn't too big of a deal. As this turn, I can bring in my War Turtle, and I know I am going to scare him out, with the Scald as he brings in his own War Turtle. I really wanted to double switch into my Fracture or my Bohemian, but there was always a possibility that he could have stayed in and gone for the Dynamic Punch, the Earthquake, or the Shadow Punch, so I thought just going for the safe Scald was the better play to go for as he brings in his War Turtle. It's basically a 50-50 chance of him going for the Rapid Spin or going for the Scald, and I decided to make the risky play and switch into my Golurk, as luckily for me, he does make the safe play and goes for the Rapid Spin. As the following turn, I'm going to be able to get off a good amount of damage with the Dynamic Punch. Above that, he is unfortunately going to end up hitting himself in Confusion, and at this point, even if he does want to go for the Scald, I should still be able to get on my Stealth Rocks, just because at full HP, I know from prior experience I can take one Torrent boosted Scald, as he actually ends up misclicking on the Protect. He misclicked, well, he told me that he misclicked, so if it was, then fine. If it wasn't, then whatever, because even if he had gone for the Scald, I still would have just left in my Golurk for Death Water, because on the off chance that this Glaceon is specs, I really don't want my Licky to take too many hits from it. So instead of going for the smart play and going for the Wish, I actually go for the Dragon Tail, which he more than likely did predict me to go for the Wish, which is why he brought in the Golurk, which isn't a bad play at all, because he could have forced me out, but because I was dumb, it actually helps me out as I Dragon Tail him back out into this Glaceon. And I'm going to go for Dragon Tail again instead of going for the Wish, and I end up missing. But judging for how much damage the Ice Beam is doing, I know for a fact that he is actually Scarfed as opposed to Specs, which is actually really good for me, because now my Licky can definitely take these hits for days, especially with the Wish and the Protect, unless he freezes me, which thankfully he doesn't freeze me. And I Dragon Tail him back down to this giant ass threat, which is Golurk. Like, this team has like no safe switching into Golurk except for my War Turtle, and if Golurk is choice banded, then I just hit the power button, because that thing is dangerous. And here I'm going to make a very risky play, hoping that he either goes for the Shadow Punch, the Earthquake, or the Stealth Rocks, expecting me to switch out. I'm actually going to stay in and go for the Heal Bell, as he makes his own good play, foders off his Glaceon to see what I would bring in on the Golurk. He can now get a free switch into his Sock, but you're going to see that here he makes a very, very big misplay, which in the end, me making dumb plays is actually going to be very beneficial to me, because with him having to lock himself into the close combat in order to take out my Licky, I can now get a free switch into this giant ass threat, which is Beheeyem. And honestly, I don't know why I never used Beheeyem prior to like the past week that I've been using it, because this thing is powerful. It's definitely a whole lot of fun. And now knowing that he would be forced to switch out, I'm actually going to go for the Trick Room, as he brings in the Golurk. After all the hazard damage and the Dragon Tail damage, he is below 50%, which means this Psychic will easily be able to knock him out. And luckily for me, I actually carry Signal Beam as opposed to Thunderbolt on this Beheeyem, which means Signal Beam will easily be able to knock out the Leafeon after the Spikes and Stealth Rocks damage. And with Sock being his last and my Trick Room still being up, I will easily outslow that and knock it out with the Psychic. But he actually is going to just end up running, and that's going to be the 3-0 victory in my favor. So yeah, that was definitely a fun game, and at that point of the battle, Beheeyem was my last chance to win the battle, just because I tried making plays that would lead up to his Sock, close combating my Licky, allowing me to get a free switch into my Beheeyem to set up a Trick Room, and luckily everything played out according to plan, and I was able to set up the Trick Room and just plow through the rest of his team. So with that, guys, I definitely hope you enjoyed Beheeyem's little rampage. I'm actually in a better mood than I was at the beginning of this narration. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to some more content if you wish to do so. And with that, I do believe I am out of here. So later, everybody.